What if the most satisfying supper you could make tonight took less time than it takes to microwave a frozen dinner, cost less than a cup of coffee, and came from a generation of American cooks who never once thought of it as a shortcut? Number 22 costs 38 cents to make and appears in a 1962 Kentucky community cookbook that no library has digitized. Number 16 was eaten by New England widows for 4 decades straight, and the entire meal takes 90 seconds of active cooking. Number 9 was invented in a Pennsylvania boarding house in 1948 by a woman feeding 14 people on $11 a week, and it spread through 3 states within a decade. Number 1 has been on American tables since 1876, and almost nobody under 60 has ever tasted it. These are not shortcuts. These are forgotten American suppers built for one person, one pan, and 10 minutes. Subscribe, because you are about to eat differently tonight. The countdown starts now. Number 25. Egg in the nest with wilted greens. A single egg costs 29 cents. A handful of spinach or any leafy green costs about 40 cents. A slice of bread, a pat of butter. Under $1 for the entire supper. You melt the butter until it foams. You drop the greens in and they collapse in 15 seconds, going dark and glossy and releasing that sharp mineral smell. You push them into a ring, crack the egg into the center, cover the pan for 90 seconds. The white sets. The yolk stays trembling. This came out of Pennsylvania Dutch farm kitchens in the 1930s, where greens went from garden to skillet in under a minute, and nothing was ever cooked twice. For a person eating alone, this is the meal that requires no chopping, no knife work, no standing. One pan, one burner, 2 minutes at the stove. Number 24. Tomato milk soup. A can of tomatoes runs $1.19. A cup of milk about 30 cents. Butter, salt, a pinch of baking soda. Under $2, and it feeds you twice. You heat the tomatoes until they steam. You add a pinch of baking soda, and the pot hisses and foams. That is the acid neutralizing, so the milk will not curdle. You pour the milk in slow, and the whole thing turns the color of a sunset. It smells like tomato and warm cream at once. Midwestern farm women made this every autumn from 1900 through the 1960s. It appears in the 1954 Iowa Farm Bureau cookbook under the name Grandma's Tomato Bisque. Soft, warm, requires no chewing. For anyone with dental trouble, this is a full supper that never once asks anything of your teeth. Number 23. Skillet corn and bacon. Frozen corn is about $1 for a cup. 2 strips of bacon, roughly 60 cents, butter and pepper. Under $2 total. You render the bacon until it curls and the fat runs clear. You drop the corn straight into the hot fat and it snaps and pops. In 4 minutes it goes from pale yellow to golden brown at the edges. The smell is smoke and sweetness together. This is Southern skillet corn, documented in Kentucky and Tennessee cookbooks going back to the 1890s. It was supper on nights when there was corn and there was fat back, and that was enough. 1 skillet, 4 minutes. No standing over a hot stove with a heavy pot, and it delivers real protein and real fat, which older bodies need more of, not less. Number 22. Buttered noodles with poppy seed. A cup of egg noodles is 38 cents. Butter, salt, a spoonful of poppy seeds. 38 cents for the base and pennies for the rest. The noodles cook in 7 minutes. You drain them and drop them straight back into the hot pan with butter. They squeak against the pan as you toss them. The butter browns just slightly and turns nutty. The poppy seeds crackle. This is Hungarian, brought to Cleveland and Pittsburgh by immigrants in the 1890s. It appears in a 1962 Kentucky community cookbook that has never been digitized, listed simply as Sunday noodles. Soft, warm, forgiving. And 38 cents means you can make it on the last week of the month when the check has not come yet, and there is no shame in that. Number 21. Cottage cheese and stewed tomato. Cottage cheese runs about 80 cents a serving. A half can of stewed tomatoes, 60 cents. Black pepper, under $1.50. You warm the tomatoes until they just steam. You spoon them over cold cottage cheese and the hot and cold meat. The tomatoes go glossy. The curds soften at the edges. Crack black pepper over it, and the smell rises. This was a Depression-era supper across the upper Midwest, particularly Minnesota and the Dakotas, where dairy was cheap and canned tomatoes were the winter vegetable. No cooking, no teeth required. 20 grams of protein in a bowl. For anyone whose appetite has thinned, this goes down when almost nothing else will. Number 20. Fried cornmeal mush. Cornmeal costs 20 cents a serving. Butter, salt, a spoon of syrup or jam. Under $1. You stir cornmeal into boiling water until it thickens like porridge. You pour it into a pan and it sets in minutes. You slice it and fry it in butter until the outside goes deep gold and crackles when you press it. The inside stays soft as custard. Native American in origin, adopted by colonial settlers, and by 1870 this was breakfast and supper across Appalachia and the Ohio Valley. Make the mush once. Slice it and fry a piece each night for 4 days. 1 pot of cooking becomes 4 suppers. That math matters when standing at a stove is hard. Here is something nobody says out loud. The hardest part of eating alone is not the cooking. It is the sitting down. It is the moment the plate is ready and the chair across from you is empty and the room is very quiet. It is the small voice that says, "It is not worth the trouble for just me. Just have crackers. Just have cereal. Nobody will know." That voice is lying to you. The women who made every meal in this video cooked for people who are gone now too. They cooked for husbands who died, for children who moved away, for houses that got quiet. And they kept cooking. They set the table. They sat down. Not because anyone was watching, because they were still here. And being here means feeding yourself like you matter. You matter. Number 18. Skillet sausage and apple. 1 sausage link is about 90 cents. Half an apple, 40 cents. Butter, a pinch of sage. Under $2. You slice the sausage into coins and brown them hard in a dry pan. The fat renders and the edges char. You throw in apple slices and they hiss in the pork fat, going translucent at the edges, soaking up the salt and smoke. 4 minutes total. This is German, carried into Wisconsin and Missouri in the 1850s. Pork and apple were harvested in the same season and cooked together out of pure timing. Sausage is soft. Apple cooks tender. Nothing here fights back against a fork, and 1 pan means 1 thing to wash. Number 17. Egg drop broth with rice. Bouillon is 15 cents. 1 egg, 29 cents. Leftover rice, whatever it cost yesterday, under 75 cents. You bring the broth to a bare simmer. You beat 1 egg and pour it in a thin stream while stirring in one direction. The egg blooms into ribbons and clouds. The broth turns silky. You drop the rice in and it warms through in a minute. Chinese American, and by 1935 it was on menus in every American city with a Chinatown. But the home version, broth, egg, leftover rice, never made it onto a menu at all. Hot, hydrating, and soft. It goes down easy on a day when nothing sounds good and eating feels like a chore. Number 16. Cream toast. 2 slices of bread, 30 cents. A cup of milk, 30 cents. Butter, flour, salt, pepper. Under $1. You melt butter, whisk in flour, and cook it until it smells like toasted nuts. You pour in milk and stir until it thickens and coats the spoon. You pour it hot over buttered toast, and the bread drinks it. The edges stay crisp. The center goes soft as pudding. New England widows ate this for 4 decades straight. It shows up in the 1896 Boston Cooking School cookbook, and it never left the region. 90 seconds of active cooking, that is it. And it is warm, filling, and gentle on a stomach that has stopped tolerating heavy food. Why did we stop making this? Who decided that $1's worth of milk and bread was not a real supper? Number 15. Bean and pickle plate. Half a can of white beans, 60 cents. A dill pickle, 30 cents. Olive oil, salt, a slice of bread. Under $1.50. You warm the beans in a pan with oil until they split slightly and go creamy. You chop the pickle fine and stir it in off the heat. The vinegar hits the warm beans and the smell is sharp and bright. It wakes up your whole mouth. This is a Portuguese-American supper from the fishing towns of Massachusetts, where salt cod boats came in, and beans were what waited at home. Number 14. Milk gravy on potato. 1 potato, 50 cents. A cup of milk, 30 cents. Butter, flour, black pepper. Under $1. The potato goes in the microwave for 6 minutes. While it cooks, you make the gravy. Butter, flour, milk, whisked until it thickens and coats the back of a spoon. Heavy black pepper. You split the potato and it steams. You pour the gravy in and it pools in the hollow. Appalachian, and it kept coal families alive through the 1920s and 30s, when meat was a Sunday thing and milk gravy was every other day. 6 minutes in a microwave and 3 minutes at a stove. No lifting a heavy pot. No draining boiling water, which is the single most dangerous thing an older cook does in a kitchen. Number 12. Skillet cabbage and butter. A quarter head of cabbage, 40 cents. Butter, salt, caraway seed. Under $1. You slice the cabbage thin and drop it into foaming butter. It hisses. In 5 minutes, it goes from pale white to gold at the edges, sweet and soft, smelling of butter and something almost like nuts. Caraway makes it sing. Irish and German both, and by 1900 it was on tables across the industrial Midwest, wherever those immigrants landed. Cabbage is one of the cheapest vegetables in any American grocery store, and one of the last to spoil. A single head sits in a refrigerator for 3 weeks. For someone who cannot shop often, that shelf life is not a small thing. Number 11. Tuna and rice. A can of tuna, $1.20. A cup of rice, 30 cents. Butter, soy or vinegar, black pepper. Under $2. You warm the rice with a pat of butter until each grain glistens. You flake the tuna in and fold it through, off the heat, so it stays tender instead of going dry and stringy. A splash of vinegar cuts the oil. Japanese-American families made this in California through the 1950s and 60s. It was simple, it was fast, and it never made it into a single mainstream American cookbook. Canned tuna is soft, high protein, and shelf-stable. Rice keeps for a year. This is a supper you can make from a pantry with nothing fresh in the house at all. Number 10. Bacon and onion sandwich. 2 strips of bacon, 60 cents. Half an onion, 30 cents. 2 slices of bread, 30 cents. Under $1.50. You crisp the bacon and set it aside. You cook the onion in the fat until it goes limp and brown and sweet, and the smell fills the entire house. You pile it onto bread with the bacon and press it flat. British and Irish carried into American mill towns, and by 1930 it was a shift workers' supper in Pittsburgh and Youngstown and every steel town in between. 10 minutes, 1 pan. And the smell alone, that cooking onion, does something for an appetite that has gone quiet. Sometimes the smell is what gets you to eat at all. Number 9. Boarding house peas and toast. A cup of frozen peas, 60 cents. Butter, flour, milk, 2 slices of bread. Under $1.50. You make a cream sauce, drop the peas in, and they turn bright green in 90 seconds. You spoon them over toast. The bread goes soft where the sauce sits and stays crisp at the crust. A woman in a Pennsylvania boarding house invented this in 1948, feeding 14 people on $11 a week. It spread through 3 states within a decade, carried by the boarders who left and never forgot it. Soft, warm, and the peas mean you get a vegetable in without any chopping, peeling, or standing. For anyone whose energy runs out by 5 in the afternoon, that matters more than any nutrition chart. Number 8. Fried bologna and mustard. 2 slices of bologna, 40 cents. Bread, 30 cents. Mustard, butter. Under $1. You score the edges of the bologna so it does not dome up. It hits the hot pan and the edges curl and blacken. It smells like a county fair. 2 minutes aside. Mustard on the bread, bologna on top, and that is supper. Working-class American, everywhere, from the 1920s onward. It is in no cookbook because nobody thought it needed writing down. 2 minutes, 1 pan, almost no cost. And it is one of the few things in this video that tastes exactly the same as it did when you were 9 years old, which is a kind of medicine that has no price. Here is what nobody will tell you. The food industry has spent 40 years telling you that a meal for one is a problem to be solved. That is why there is a freezer aisle full of trays with your portion already measured out, sealed in plastic, priced at $6, and engineered to be eaten in front of a television. They are not selling you convenience. They are selling you the idea that cooking for one person is not worth doing. But every single supper in this video was made for one person, by hand, by someone who thought that person was worth cooking for. Sometimes that person was herself. She stood at that stove at the end of a long day, alone in a quiet house, and she made cream toast. For herself. Number 6. Chipped beef on toast. A jar of dried beef, $2. Milk, butter, flour, bread. Under $2.50 and it makes 2 suppers. You tear the beef into shreds and warm it in butter until the edges crisp. You add flour, then milk, and it thickens into a gravy the color of old ivory. It smells salty and rich. You pour it over toast, thick. Military, and every American soldier from 1910 to 1975 knows exactly what this is. They brought it home and it became a Sunday night supper in a million houses. Soft, salty, high protein. And it takes 8 minutes from cold pan to hot plate, which is roughly how long a person can comfortably stand at a counter. Number 5. Wilted lettuce with hot bacon dressing. Lettuce, 60 cents. 2 strips of bacon, 60 cents. Vinegar, sugar, salt. Under $1.50. You crisp the bacon and pour the hot fat straight over a bowl of torn lettuce. It collapses on contact, going glossy and dark. You splash vinegar into the hot pan and it steams up sharp. That goes over the top too. Appalachian and Pennsylvania Dutch, and this was the first meal of spring for 200 years. the moment the first greens came up. Raw greens are hard on an older digestive system. Wilted greens are not. This is how you eat a salad when a salad has stopped agreeing with you. And it takes 4 minutes. Continuing from where it cut off. Number 4. Salmon patty. A can of salmon, $2.20. 1 egg, cracker crumbs, butter. Under $3 and it makes 3 patties. You mash the salmon with the egg and crumbs and form flat cakes. They go into hot butter and they sizzle immediately. 4 minutes aside until the outside is deep brown and crusted, and the inside stays soft and steaming. This is Midwestern and Southern both,
a woman named
and it was Friday supper in Catholic homes from the 1930s through the 1970s. Canned salmon has the bones in, softened by the canning, and they are pure calcium. Your grandmother did not know the science, she just knew it kept her strong. Make 3, eat 1, refrigerate 2. 3 suppers from 1 pan. Number 3. Onion and egg scramble. Half an onion, 30 cents. 2 eggs, 58 cents. Butter, salt. Under $1. You cook the onions slow in butter until it goes limp and golden sweet, and the whole kitchen smells like something is finally happening. You pour beaten eggs over and pull them gently through the pan. Off the heat while they still look slightly wet. They finish in the pan. Jewish American, brought from Eastern Europe to New York in the 1880s, and it never left the neighborhood kitchens where it landed. 2 eggs is 12 grams of protein. It is soft, it is warm, and it takes 6 minutes. On the days when the whole idea of supper feels like too much, this is the one that still gets made. Number 2. Skillet potato hash. 1 potato, 50 cents. Half an onion, 30 cents. Butter or bacon fat. Under $1. You dice the potatoes small so it cooks fast. It hits the hot fat and you leave it alone. Do not stir. That is the whole secret. It sits and it browns and a crust forms on the bottom, and when you finally turn it, the smell that comes up is the best smell in any American kitchen. Universal, from New England to Texas. And it was breakfast and supper both for anyone who worked with their hands. 1 potato, 1 pan, 9 minutes. Almost no money. And that crust, that dark, crisp, salty crust, is the reason people who grew up on this still make it at 82 years old. Number 1. Milk toast with nutmeg. 2 slices of bread, 30 cents. A cup of milk, 30 cents. Butter, sugar, a grating of nutmeg. Under $1 for the whole supper. You toast the bread dark and butter it while it is hot. You warm the milk with a little sugar until it steams but never boils. You tear the toast into a bowl and pour the warm milk over and grate nutmeg across the top. The bread swells and softens. The butter rises and pools. It smells like every kitchen you have ever been safe in. This has been on American tables since 1876. Cottage cheese on toast. The light supper that spread cottage cheese on warm toast for a quick, protein-rich meal that took no cooking beyond the toaster. A tub of cottage cheese cost 39 cents in 1972. Today, around $2.49. White bread and pepper. Total then under 50 cents. Today, under $4. Fed 2. You toast the bread. You spread cottage cheese over it. You add a crack of black pepper. The toast is warm and crisp. The cottage cheese is cool and creamy. The pepper gives it a bite. Cottage cheese on toast came from American and European light meal traditions. By 1972, it was a fast supper in homes that needed something quick and filling. Toast and a spoon of cottage cheese. A light supper in 3 minutes. Beans on toast. The British-American supper that took a can of baked beans and a slice of toast and turned them into a hot, filling meal in under 5 minutes. A can of baked beans cost 15 cents in 1972. Today, around $1.49. White bread and butter. Total then under 30 cents. Today, under $3. Fed 2. You heat the beans in a pot. You toast the bread and butter it. You pour the hot beans over the toast. The beans go thick and saucy. The toast soaks them up from underneath. The butter melts through. Beans on toast came from British working-class cooking and crossed into American homes through the 1900s. By 1972, it was a fast, hot supper for families with no energy to cook. A can and a slice of toast. Hot food in 5 minutes. Cheese whiz on celery. The cool, crunchy, no-cook supper that filled celery sticks with processed cheese spread. A snack that became dinner on the nights nobody could face the stove. A jar of Cheese Whiz cost 59 cents in 1972. Today, around $4.49. A bunch of celery. Total then under 70 cents. Today, under $6. Fed 4. You wash and trim the celery. You spread Cheese Whiz into the groove of each stalk. You cut them into pieces. The celery stays cool and crunchy. The cheese spread is rich and salty. The two textures play against each other. Cheese Whiz launched in 1952 and quickly became an American convenience staple. By 1972, stuffed celery was a fast, no-cook supper and snack in homes everywhere. No cooking, no heat. Crunchy supper in 5 minutes. SpaghettiOs-style quick pasta. The homemade version of the canned classic. Small pasta in a quick tomato sauce that came together in 10 minutes and made the children cheer. A box of small pasta cost 15 cents in 1973. Today, around $1.49. A can of tomato soup and a little butter. Total then under 40 cents. Today, under $3. Fed 4. You boil the small pasta until tender and drain it. You stir in tomato soup and a spoon of butter. You heat through 2 minutes. The pasta goes soft. The tomato soup coats every piece. The butter makes it rich. SpaghettiOs launched in 1965 and became an instant American children's favorite. By 1973, the homemade version was a fast weeknight supper in homes everywhere. A box of pasta and a can of soup. The children's favorite in 10 minutes. Hard-boiled egg and salt plate. The simplest supper on this list. A few hard-boiled eggs, a shake of salt, and a slice of bread. Protein on the table with almost no effort at all. A dozen eggs cost 50 cents in 1972. Today, around $3.49. Salt and white bread. Total then under 60 cents. Today, under $4. Fed 3. You boil the eggs for 10 minutes. You peel them under cold water. You serve them with salt, pepper, and buttered bread. The eggs go firm and rich. The salt brings out the flavor. The bread rounds out the meal. The hard-boiled egg supper came from universal thrift cooking, where eggs were cheap protein. By 1972, it was a fast, no-fuss supper in working-class homes everywhere. Buttered noodles with Parmesan. The supper that took a box of egg noodles, a pat of butter, and a shake of Parmesan and turned them into something that children asked for again and again. A box of egg noodles cost 19 cents in 1973. Today, around $1.49. Butter and grated Parmesan. Total then under 40 cents. Today, under $3. Fed 4. You boil the noodles until tender and drain them. You toss them with butter until coated. You shower them with grated Parmesan. The noodles go glossy with butter. The Parmesan melts and clings. The whole bowl is simple and rich. Buttered noodles came from German and Eastern European immigrant cooking. By 1973, they were a fast, comfort supper in American homes everywhere. A box of noodles and a pat of butter. Comfort in 10 minutes. Toast with tomato and mayo. The summer supper of the South. A thick slice of ripe tomato on toast with a swipe of mayonnaise and a shake of salt. 3 ingredients, no cooking, pure comfort. A garden tomato cost nothing. White bread and mayonnaise. Total then under 20 cents. Today under $3. Fed 2. You toast the bread. You spread it with mayonnaise. You lay thick slices of ripe tomato on top with salt and pepper. The toast crunches. The tomato is cool and juicy. The mayonnaise ties it together. The tomato and mayo toast came from southern summer cooking, where ripe tomatoes were abundant. By 1972, it was a fast, no-cook supper in homes across the South. Toast, tomato, mayo. Summer supper in 3 minutes. Cinnamon sugar toast. The supper that felt like a treat. Buttered toast dusted with cinnamon and sugar, run under the broiler until it bubbled. Breakfast for dinner on a tired night. A loaf of bread cost 25 cents in 1973. Today, around $2. Butter, sugar, and cinnamon. Total then under 30 cents. Today, under $3. Fed 4. You butter slices of bread. You sprinkle cinnamon and sugar over them. You run them under the broiler until the sugar bubbles and the edges go golden. The sugar caramelizes. The cinnamon perfumes the kitchen. The toast goes crisp and sweet. Cinnamon toast came from American and English children's comfort traditions. By 1973, it was a fast supper and treat in homes everywhere. Toast, sugar, cinnamon, broiler. A sweet supper in 5 minutes. Crock-pot sloppy joes. The sandwich filling that simmered all day until it went thick, sweet, and perfect for spooning onto buns. Ground beef cost 39 cents a pound in 1972. Today, around $5.50. Onion, ketchup, tomato sauce, and brown sugar. Total then under $1. Today, under $7. Fed 6. You brown the beef and add it to the crock with onion, ketchup, and tomato sauce. You set it on low for 6 hours. The filling goes thick and glossy. The flavor deepens all day. The buns soak up the sauce. Crock-pot sloppy joes came from American home cooking, adapted to the slow cooker. By 1972, they were a weeknight standard nationwide. Browned in the morning, perfect by supper time.